Hello, my name is Colin McNabb, and I am a seminarian studying for the Archdiocese of Boston. I'm actually speaking to you from my parish assignment in Cohasset and Hull, and I am entering third theology, and God willing, a year from now I will be ordained a transitional deacon, and 2 years from now I will be ordained a priest of Jesus Christ. So I wanted to offer a little story for you today about my own vocational journey and how I ended up in the seminary. I grew up in a pretty normal family. I was the youngest of 6 children, or am the youngest of 6 children. I grew up in Townsend, and I bet you most of you don't know where that is, but it's the most northwestern parish in the Archdiocese of Boston. And I had a very normal upbringing. I, went around on my bike, I played with my Legos, all that kind of thing. But my family wasn't really religious. And I remember as a child, I would always go to CCD, but we didn't go to church that much. And as a child, I used to ask to go to church. And I was also that kid who I would put sheets on my shoulders, and I'd turn the coffee table into an altar, and I'd take bread and I'd flatten it out just so I could hold it up and make it look like the host as it's being consecrated. And I would even make my family come to Mass, and I would tear up little pieces of bread and give it to them for communion. I really don't think it was valid, but anyways, it was something that I always loved doing. And my family would kind of humor me and participate just simply so that I would leave them alone for a while. But I went through normal upbringing, playing hockey and going to school. And then when I was 17, I had just been confirmed, and I was in my family store, and my sister, who was working there as well, said, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And I said to her, this is completely out of nowhere, "I'm going to become a priest, and I'm going to be a good priest." I had never talked about the priesthood before. I had never said anything about the priesthood before, but something inside of me just made me say that. And I remember my sister was very shocked when I said this, and she said to me, "You are absolutely not doing that." And at this point, I really hadn't unpacked that gift of fortitude that I received at my confirmation. So I didn't speak about it again. I went to college, I went to the University of Vermont, and initially I was going to Mass, and I was very active in the Catholic student group, and slowly I started drifting away from the church, and things of this world, not the world to come, seemed to be more in my lane. And when I got to be about a junior, I completely stopped going to Mass, except maybe on a big holy day of obligation or something of that nature. It was a very, very dark time in my life. And I graduated from the University of Vermont, and I didn't know what to do with myself, so I had an opportunity to get a visa to move overseas, so I moved to London. And I lived in London for 2 years. Again, I kind of continued this period of spiritual desolation and having no connection with Christ or his church. One day at work, I was talking to a man named Patrick, and I said to him, "What are you going to get for lunch?" And Patrick said, "I'm going to get something quick after I go to Mass." Now, this was a Thursday, and I didn't even think that Masses happened if it wasn't a Saturday night or a Sunday. And so I said to him, "Why are you going to Mass? It's a Thursday." And I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, "It's Corpus Christi, aren't you Catholic?" And like any man who gets caught not knowing something, I kind of fibbed to cover myself. I said, "Of course it's Corpus Christi." And then I had to awkwardly ask him where the church was. But on Corpus Christi in the year 2004, I walked back into a church in the Soho district of London, and it felt good. So the next Sunday I went back again, and it felt good again. And I started getting into this cycle of going to Mass. And I'm not going to lie and say that I was going every Sunday, but I was going more often than not, and I was feeling better about myself and feeling better about my relationship with God. I subsequently moved back to the United States. I was working at my family's company, and I was just continuing on, starting to think about the priesthood again. And then, at a certain point, I was thinking, I really, really should look into this priesthood thing. I think that this might be where I'm supposed to go. And then something happened, a little something that was a vocational bump in my my path to the seminary. I actually met a woman. I swear that it was an accident and that our first date was not supposed to be a first date, but it ended up becoming a date. And we ended up dating for 6 years. And during that 6 years, I was continuing to be active in my home parish, and I was a Eucharistic minister. I was helping to teach confirmation, and I felt like a person who was slightly divided. And during this time, I was going on men's retreats, and everything seemed to be kind of going in a positive path. I ran for selectman in my hometown. I became a selectman. And so I had, on paper, what was everything. I had a good job. I was a selectman in my hometown. And I had this beautiful girlfriend. And so I didn't really feel compelled to get married, but it seemed like the logical step. So we were hiking one day, and we went up to the top of a mountain that we used to like to hike, and I turn, I hold her hand, and I take the ring out of my pocket, and I start going down on one knee. It was about halfway down that something in my head said, "You are making a terrible mistake." But at that point, gravity had kind of taken hold, and it was easier to go down than up. And I now was on one knee with a ring in my hand, my other hand was holding her hand. And not knowing what to do, I asked her to marry me. And I kind of even remember fumbling the words. And anybody out there who's getting judgy about that, especially you guys, if you're on your knee in front of a girl with a ring in your hand, you're gonna ask her. You're definitely gonna ask her. And so all of a sudden I'm engaged. And I said, oh, okay, well maybe these feelings that I'm not doing the right thing are gonna go away. And so we start planning a wedding. And I'm getting more active in my church. And she's drifting in a different direction. And there's a certain point where I came to realize that I wasn't being faithful to her. And the other woman in my life was the Catholic Church. And so the two of us sat down, we talked, and we both decided we cannot get married. So she gave me back the ring, we hugged, we said I love you, and we parted ways. And I was normally, like anybody would be, a little bit sad. And then, a little while after that, I said, I can look into the priesthood again. So I contacted the vocations office, and I met with a priest, and he said, well, do you really want to apply right now, because it's a little close to the next semester? And I said, I really don't want my rebound relationship to be the Catholic Church, so why don't I wait and apply the following year? And so I ended up discerning for over a year and a half before I actually started the application. And with a number of things happening, I was still a selectman and very active in politics and very active in my family's company, and also very active in my home parish. Something kind of, two ships missed in the night, and I missed a deadline to be interviewed at the seminary. And so then all of a sudden, when everything got done and completed, totally my fault, I had to go at a later interview date. And so I go to the seminary, I go into a room, and there are 4 priests and a layman sitting there to interview me. And so they interviewed me, and I was all excited, and they're all shaking my hand, and one of the priests said to me, "We'll see you in 16 days." And so, as I'm walking down the hallway to leave, I go, "Oh, I haven't told my family about this. I haven't told anybody at work about this. And I haven't told anybody at the town hall about this." So, in 16 days, I had to tell my family, find replacement employees for me at my family's company, resign as a selectman in my hometown, pack up my entire apartment, give away a lot of my things, and find a home for my cat. Finding a home for the cat was the hardest one. And it all fell into place. Every time there was a hurdle in my path, I sailed right over it by God's grace. And so I entered the seminary, and my family was very happy for me, and my friends were very happy for me. And it has made me feel like I'm finally on the right path. And that path is to a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. And before I was in seminary, I had money, I had a beautiful fiance, I had a truck, which I couldn't keep. I had a cat who hates me now. And on paper, I had everything. And now I'm in formation. I don't have money. I don't have influence. I am being formed into a priest, and I'm happy. And it's by God's grace, and it's because I'm on the path that God has for me. And God willing, I will be ordained one of his priests in less than 2 years, and that is such an amazing thing. Formation's not always a smooth path, and there's been ups and there's been downs, but even in those ups and downs, I'm still heading to a closer relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And I'm leaving a lot of details out, but I hope you get the idea that it is by the love of Jesus Christ that I am here today. It is by the forgiveness and the mercy that we are all shown and all have as beloved sons and daughters of Jesus Christ that I am able to talk about this now. So I hope that you consider your vocation and what God has in store for you. So God bless, and I hope to see you sometime. Bye now.